So, let me introduce our lovely speaker today. Our guest speaker for today is the founder of Bobbie Pins and Blush. It's a queer and woman-owned hair and makeup salon based in Los Angeles, California. She has built her business around authenticity, inclusion, and self-expression, and has created a space where people feel comfortable showing up exactly as they are and where clients know that they are genuinely seen and celebrated. So today, she'll be sharing her experiences, insights, and the inspiration behind her work. Everyone, let's all welcome Valerie Harrison. Hi, Valerie. We're so
Hi,
happy to have you with us today.
thank you for having me.
Thank you again for joining us, Valerie. I know we're all looking forward to hearing your story. So, without further delay, I'll hand things over to you, and we're excited to hear about your journey.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It has been an honor to be here. My name is Valerie, and I am the owner and lead artist behind Bobbie Pins and Blush. I'm 37 years old. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and I moved to Los Angeles, California, nine and a half years ago, to inevitably start my own wedding business, but not necessarily knew that Bobby Pins and Blush was gonna become what it is today. I started doing weddings in California as my own company in 2018, but it didn't really come to be what it is today until about 2020. It was during the pandemic where I had this epiphany per se, is that I just loved what I did for a living, but what was I actually doing with the knowledge and talent that I kind of have for the community that I am a part of. I noticed a very stark difference right off the bat doing queer weddings opposed to doing hetero weddings, and just how to carefully care for queer weddings, all the way from initial inquiry to final wedding day details. I believe it starts like all the way back to the beginning of queer representation, just through hair and makeup and fashion and what it really means as their identity. So today's agenda, we're going to go over a couple main points. Topics today that tie queer history through hair and makeup into how the wedding industry kind of forced me to create Bobby Pins and Blush, because there's nothing like it that I've come across. And I just think that is extremely important to be able to keep this history alive, strong, and current as it's always changing. So we got some hair and makeup and queer history, hair and makeup as signal and story. And then we have, sorry, we will go back one more for that. Love and legality, and then we'll have a little open question and answer. All right. So we'll start queer hair and makeup and queer history. It kind of all starts back to what I like to call the beautiful beginnings. Hair and makeup have been long tools for queer people to signal identity, resist oppression, and build communities, shifting from coded signals to bold public statements. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, hair and makeup were part of a visual language of queer culture. One of the first recordings was in 1890. Putting a green carnation into a buttonhole of their shirt or jacket became coded signals for gay men, evolving into a more commonly seen practice around the 1970s called hanky code or flagging. This was a way to use bandanas and other pieces of colored cloth, typically in your back pocket, to find compatible partners in a safe and nonverbal way. This practice is a subculture within the gay community to distinguish one another through preferences, gender nonconforming identities. Queer women in the early 20th century changed femininity norms by adapting masculine clothing and short haircuts. In the 1940s, during World War II, lesbian and bisexual women adapted their own rendition of flagging using keys in a carabiner, which you might be aware of the carabiner joke today with lesbians. But placement of the keys represented preference of dominant and submissive dynamics desired between them and other women. Today, the carabiner is still a widely known indicator for gay or queer women. Fashion, hairstyles, and makeup could be subtle signals in restrictive societies, helping queer people recognize each other while avoiding police and social persecution. Which brings us to a little louder statement in gay culture. Post-war oppression fueled what we call the camp aesthetic. It's colorful, over-the-top fashion and makeup. Gay men in particular adopted camp fashion as a form of coded communication and self-expression, wearing sequined outfits, bold patterns, and oversized accessories as staple elements of their looks. Drag culture began to later blossom in the 1950s and 60s as queer performers took to constructing hyper feminine personas. Taking inspiration from the glamorous costumes and looks in Hollywood at the time, drag queens used fashion not only for beauty, but also allowing them to mix theater and activism on stage. In the years leading up to the Stonewall riots in 1969, became both a target for law enforcement and a way to rebel against laws that restricted gendered appearance. The pre-existing New York City law made it illegal for anyone masked or in any manner disguised by unusual or unnatural attire or facial alteration. For anyone who congregated in a public place with people masked or disguised, except for authorized masquerade parties and parades. This directly affected most queer and gender nonconforming people who used the camp aesthetic, loud expressions, altered their makeup and hair, or adjusted their appearance in any way that appeared unnatural to their assigned gender at birth. Some people might ask, what do men wear and what do they look like? What do women wear? What do they look like? Well, that depends where you are in the world. In America during these times, men didn't wear any makeup normally. They wore blue. They wore pants, sleeved shirts, ties, flat shoes, clean shaven, short hair, what you might say is the typical men's or masculine clothing. And for women, they wore pink, lots of makeup, long hair, dresses, heels, carried purses, and embodied a subtle and more soft-spoken persona. In fact, by 1920, over 40 US cities passed laws that allowed someone to be persecuted for wearing clothing that did not correlate to their assigned gender at birth. These were known as anti-cross-dressing laws. One of our most memorable rebellion, and also one of our, I feel like a little contradictory in a typical America fashion, is the red lipstick. In 1912, suffragettes Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Charlotte Perkins Gilman defiantly wore red lipstick at a New York City rally, challenging the then taboo public use of the cosmetic and linking it to women's rights to vote. This act turned red lips into an emblem of female emancipation, even prompting 1915 U.S. legislation proposing penalties for women wearing the makeup to create a false impression. And in typical American fashion, they completely changed the narrative. During World War II, red lipstick then became a symbol of patriotism and anti-fascism. Adolf Hitler famously despised red lipstick, and Allied countries adopted Victory Red as a symbol of defiance against the Nazi Party. The U.S. military even mandated that women joining the U.S. Army to wear red lipstick as part of their standard issue. A couple more famous rebellions in the hair and makeup world is we have the first picture in 1915. This is dancer Irene Castle. She became the first public figure to wear a bob, rejecting the long decorative styles tied to restrictive femininity. And in 1960s, the women's liberation movement embraced the pixie cut, short styles as feminist statements, rejecting the ideal long styled hair as a symbol of the traditional woman. Also, in 1960s, the afro became a symbol of black pride and resistance during the civil rights movement, rejecting Eurocentric beauty standards and chemical straightening. The afro hair movement was not only a style choice, but also a political statement. The afro was a rejection of the assimilationist approach to civil rights, which advocated for Black Americans to assimilate into mainstream American culture and conform to white beauty standards. In the late 20th century, we see a rise of the alternative subcultures that used fashion to rebel not only against mainstream circles, but the conservative circles also within the queer community itself. Born out of the punk rock scene, the queer core movement used fashion as a tool for political rebellion. It particularly criticized the growing commercialization of the queer community, using smudged eyeliners, dark, bold lipstick, dirty looking hair, and even mohawks, mullets, and skullets. Hair and makeup as signal in history. They have gay, queer, and gender nonconforming hairstyles have been as much about identity and history as about beauty. From natural curls to shaved heads, the bob and styled waves, hair has been a secret signal or bold confession in the queer communities. These choices often intersected with race, class, and subculture, creating unique visual languages. Black queer women have been amongst the leaders of hair rebellion politically and socially. Black beauty salons have always been more than hair care venues. They were hubs for political organizing, economic empowerment, and cultural preservation. Beauticians used their spaces to host voter registration drives, distribute educational materials, and foster solidarity. For queer people, salons could also be safe places to navigate intersectional identities and challenges. Which brings us today, where queer hair and makeup practices are more visible and diverse, blending historical codes with contemporary trends. Icons like RuPaul and artists such as Chappell Roan draw on these traditions while drag and gender nonconforming aesthetics continue to challenge norms. Hair and makeup in queer history have been both camouflage and proclamation tools for survival, community building, and resistance, evolving from subtle signals to vibrant public expressions of identity. Love and legality. I feel like when people think of America in gay community, they think that we can be gay, queer, trans, and non-binary openly and without fear, which may be true in some cities. But this freedom of love we think of today in America hasn't been around very long. It was only in 2004 when Massachusetts, which is my home state, became the first state to legalize gay marriage. It wasn't until 2015 where a Supreme Court case required all 50 states to recognize and license same-sex marriages. However, we are still fighting to keep these rights intact today. We've even had several states have lawmakers take measures asking Supreme Courts to overturn the ruling that granted same-sex couples the right to marry in the first place. Access to gender-conforming care can be extremely difficult, especially in these states. There are currently only 39 countries in the world that allow same-sex marriages and 150 that prohibit it. Some are even punishable by death. So that is where it's kind of all came together for me, where I felt like I needed to use my personal experience as a queer person and my love for the history of how we got to where we are. I've always been intrigued by hair and makeup and how it can just completely transform a look into anything that you could possibly desire. After doing weddings for about 10 years, I started to see the lack of representation in queer couples in the wedding beauty industry. Most hair and makeup artists had very binary language on their websites, such as bride and groom, Mr. and Mrs., and just not very much diversity in their portfolios. So when I started Bobbie Pins and Blush in 2018, I wanted a queer person to see our website and notice the inclusive language in the diverse portfolio and just feel safe to request the hair and makeup style that they want without feeling the need to explain themselves as to why they picked something that might not be a common wedding look. We really like to stand by our phrase when we say, "We see you." because we really understand how important it is to feel comfortable in your own skin and how important it is to have representation on a team that is highly trained at their craft and thoroughly educated on queer history and current beauty trends. When you sit in our chair, there's no judgment here. There's no awkward moments of explaining why. Maybe a visually feminine presenting person may want more of a masculine makeup, hair or style in general, or someone perceived as one gender may want a full glam with lashes. We are the artist that kind of does what you are looking for with our hands. So you tell us what to do, and we make your vision come true. We provide you with a service of artistry, compassion, love, and just something that for working a lot of different people and seeing and hearing some things that have just made me cringe. I just really saw that there was something lacking in that field that I love so much, which is the wedding industry. But here is a little, this is my contact information. This is our email, our website. We also have TikTok, Instagram. Everything is Bobbie Pins Blush. No and in our tags. Yes, and also the little story behind Bobbie Pins is this is the original way they spelled Bobbie in the Bobbie Pins. I'm not sure how the Y came about, but that is why I chose that because I just feel like it's a little bit enriched with some history of how that also came about, and yeah, that's how you can find us.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
You're welcome.
I told you I was so excited about the things that you were going to talk about today.
Yes,
Because I think that's just a wonderful reminder that feeling seen can have a profound impact on how people experience the world around them, right? And the work
absolutely.
that you do
Mhm.
absolutely does that. I just wanted to share with you that here in the Philippines, the creative, the events, and the wedding industry is actually led mostly by people in the community.
Oh, I love it.
And how lovely it would be that eventually they get to do these things for the community too, right? The
Hmm.
clients would be from the community for their own weddings and for their own right to
For sure.
showcase their love. So at this point, we are going to open the floor for some questions. So if
Yeah.
you guys have a question for Valerie, please drop it in the Zoom chat and we'll go through as many as we can or as time allows us to do so. But before we get to your questions from the participants' questions, there are some things that I would like to ask you, Valerie, actually.
Yeah.
So from your talk, I want to know what's your viewpoint on this? Because is there or are there some common differences in how queer weddings or in queer weddings that made you really notice that there's a huge difference compared to a hetero wedding?
Oh yes, a good question. So yes, I think one thing that really stood out for me in particular is this like just level of care and understanding that in almost all, I honest, if not all of my weddings with my queer clients, that they are managing this day with grace and love and happiness, all while mourning the loss of friends and family members that not aren't necessarily gone, but
Yeah.
they're not in their lives, whether it has to do with their lifestyle that they might a religious reason, but to see my clients have this chosen family and these
Hmm.
people love and care for them and show up for them that their own family couldn't even do was just something to that needed just a little bit more navigating with care and to
Yeah.
under someone to understand that. And unrelated to hair and makeup, but when you're in the hair and makeup chair and during that time during a wedding day, it's very personal. It's the only time they really get to sit down and like breathe and kind of like be uninterrupted. So we get to see that like emotion and sometimes can be sadness of that, and it also beautiful to see the people that do show up as chosen family.
So it is a little bit bittersweet, right? It's a celebration, but
Yes.
at the same
Yeah.
time, there is a bit of sadness for the people who are not able to join us through their choices or through their because of their beliefs. Uh, I also want to ask, when you use the phrase "we see you," what do
Mhm.
you think it actually means to queer people when they hear those words, especially from someone who's a wedding artist?
Yeah, so I think what changes us from maybe somebody who is not familiar with doing queer
Mhm.
and gender queer people, is when I say we see you, it is I have a story one time. I had a guy in a wedding party. He uses he, him pronouns. He identifies as a man, but he was a bridesmaid in this wedding party. He was going to wear a dress and he wanted some makeup. And he's done this before for another wedding party. And when he sat down in another artist's chair and he was showing the makeup that he wanted, the artist kind of looked at him and
Mhm.
was just like, "Okay, but I don't do drag makeup, just so you know." And he's like, I'm not asking for drag makeup. I'm just asking for makeup on my face the way it is. And like he's like I had this awkward moment. She was trying to like, well, you're not going to look like that because you're a man. And he was like, I'm not asking for you to like wave a magic wand and turn me into someone else, but I just wanted to be able to say I wanted a winged eyeliner, I wanted a little blush, and I wanted my lips filled in without having to like go down this journey of like coming out in a sense where it just felt awkward and he just didn't have a great experience. And then when he sat down with my artists and he showed the same pictures, my artists were like, I don't understand why she would ever think you wanted drag make nothing you're showing me is drag. I understand you just want a little glitter, a little mascara. And it's like there was no awkward conversation. We just had fun, lovely banter. And I think that was really a situation where I can say, like, we see what you want and we don't have to ask you why. You just have to ask you what you want.
Absolutely, right. Without having to justify why you want to, what do you call this? Express yourself a certain way.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that. If if you were to be asked if inclusivity and language on a website can make someone feel safe enough to even make an inquiry, what does that tell us about how much representation actually matters?
Well, okay, so when I first started Bobbie Pins and Blush, I always tried to keep my language inclusive, but even over the last couple of years, I've managed on my website to kind of find a little more ways to kind of throw that in there. And fast forward to today, almost every single wedding that I have that is a queer person or gay, they say to me that it was really important for them to try to find either women-owned businesses or queer women-owned, or people have in their portfolio queer people.
Mhm.
Again, just to make things easier, to avoid these awkward conversations. And um, I just think that every single person has told me like you were the only person that we saw that had this on there, you're the only person that had this on their website, these pictures, like you guys are the only ones that made us feel like they were going to sign the contract before they even met us. So I feel like that right there was a huge like eye opener to me, that was like this is
Yeah.
what they've been missing, like yeah.
I get what you're saying. Because right now, like if you would take us back to that moment when you were scrolling through wedding vendor websites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just kept on seeing the terms bride and groom over and over. What was
Yeah.
actually going through your head, or how did that make you feel?
I was just like, I don't know. It was more like, is there, and I've even seen some like gendered pricing, which I
Yeah.
just think is wild, to be like men's hair and then women's hair, and
Yeah.
then there's a woman that has short hair and a man that has long hair, and you're gonna charge them gendered. I don't think that 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 is makes any sense. So just seeing over and over again, like bride and groom, Mr. and Mrs. is just it almost feels like defeating in a way, as it's just like, oh, again, here we go again. Like having to come out every day
Yeah.
is exhausting. And I think even as like a femme presenting person, it's I kind of do that all the time. People will have to ask like, oh, you have a husband or a boyfriend, and there's another situation where I have to like come out again. It's just nice to not have to do that, or even keep reading something. You just be like, oh, the people getting married, and it's just like everyone's included in that. So yeah.
I love that. Um, Also, in your experience, you mentioned earlier that sometimes queer couples would come in and so sometimes they would have to explain or justify their vision, and people would say take that the makeup style that they want comes off as drag or whatever. Can you give us an example of a moment? Is there like a specific client interaction that really stuck with you?
Yeah, that one for sure. That the guy that was in our chair, and just even how much he loved it after that was so great. And then also I had a couple bride recently who was more masculine presenting bride, and she was so scared to get her. She had a very like rosy complexion, and when she wanted to just look all over like not natural, and she had a wedding trial with
Mhm.
another wedding artist, and she was like, I look like I have makeup on, like I have mascara and rosy cheeks again, and she's like, I'm not wanting. I don't want a feminine look like at all. I just want to look like camera ready. So we have a service on our site called we call it complexion makeup, where it's basically we just even out your complexion, and we just brighten some areas with just regular neutral tones. And that bride was she was like we instantly, like, she messaged me, emailed me, called me, because she was like, you guys are the first representation that I saw of masculine presenting women that had their makeup done with you guys, and like it was like a no-brainer. So
I
that was
love
nice.
those
Yeah.
types of stories. Well, I now want to go to like say the practical side of things because obviously you moved from Boston to California to chase this dream, right? To build this business to be the first um, wedding service provider that is catering specifically also or especially to queer couples. Can you tell us of what people told you when you first told them about your plans to do that, to start this business, and who were the first ones to believe in you or show encouragement?
Yeah, okay, so my story of coming out was very soft and kind, and my family was very supportive. So that I had a very easy time in what I would say, in my opinion, from what I've heard from all my other friends, colleagues, and that my I had a very loving coming out story. I also have always been very, very big into the hair. Since I was like 3 years old, I've been just obsessed with hair. I went
Yeah.
to college for business to own my own business. So going out to California to do hair was everyone was like, they didn't want me to go, but they knew that this was something that I was kind of destined to do. It wasn't until and I've also just been very, very big on political movements and human rights campaigns and just queer history in general. I just love learning and knowing why things come about and where they came from. Like I am the kind of person
Mhm.
that's like, wait, what does that mean? Like I have to Google and look. So I've just always been forever learning and changing. So I think my mother was the main person when I told her my idea for Bobbie Pins and Blush, and how I wanted to, cater to everybody, but just use soft and subtle signs to like bring the queer community at ease, for something that is such a joyful and happy day, and like the rights that they fought for to get here. I think she was like, you found your niche, you did it. Like it was everyone was very much like it's a no-brainer. Like this is right up your alley.
Love that. Having the support and encouragement, especially of your own family, is really
Hmm.
crucial, right? And it helps you
Yes.
be more confident in the choices that you make and explore this kinds of things. And just look at how successful your business became eventually, right? And who
Very, very
knows if you would have started it in the first place if you didn't have that kind of support. And just how we wish that everyone else in the community would have the same type of support as well, especially from their family members. Now let's go to something fun. I want to talk
okay,
about
yeah.
some of the bridal looks or the couple looks that you've done for the people that you cater weddings for. Would you indulge us and tell us about, say, the most elaborate or unexpected look request you've ever received?
Ooh, okay. So one of my first ones that I can ever remember, actually was a bisexual woman. I came into her place. I usually go on site for these services where so we do something called a trial where I come and do a test run. So I come to your apartment and I walked in and she had a little Doctor Who mat on the floor. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Doctor Who, but it's like a very long-standing like sci-fi show. It's like a geek culture thing, but in the queer community, that kind of those things kind of go hand in hand. So I kind of like instantly felt like, ooh, this is gonna be fun, and it was. We did. She had like a Viking kind of themed wedding. It was like in the mountains, in California. It was winter. She had big
Yeah.
fur on. We did all these braids, where braids is like one of my specialties. We did this really dark purple lipstick and these smoky
Uh-huh.
eyes. That was one of my first before when I was just freelancing before I started my own company, where I was like, how do I get more weddings like this? And then fast forward to something we just did recently. One of our brides, she made her own wedding dress, her own crystal crown. We did like this, she had pink hair. We did these crazy, like tiny curls with this makeup with diamonds and glitter. And it was like a fairy wedding. And it was just so much fun and this like spice that like only what I think like queer can bring to something like that. And it was just a great time. It was so much fun.
I love that. The creative industry really takes a lot of hours, right? A lot of hard work, but it also sounds so much fun just hearing about this stories that you're sharing with us. I'm trying to visualize all the hair pieces, especially from the Viking themed wedding that you
Yeah,
were
it was
talking
just
about.
so
That is so
crazy.
exciting. Um,
Hmm.
and I know that earlier you said that you had a lot of encouragement from your family when
Hmm.
you were starting the business or when you shared the idea of wanting to start the business. But were there some fears of doing this, starting it up, moving from one state to the other? And would you do it all over again?
Absolutely. Like, I feel like the one thing I think maybe if anything I would do sooner it would be is do it sooner. I feel like I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, which like overall is a pretty big city, but a small town. So I felt like I was a little bit sheltered as a kid, and even going to college was pretty tough for me. It was like only 20 minutes away, but if I could have done it sooner, I feel like I would have liked to maybe have Bobbie Pins and Blush like sooner. Like I know that's like I said that a couple times, but it took me a minute to find out what I wanted and like where I kind of belonged, and also kind of like building my community of my chosen family and friends. And yeah, it took it Los Angeles isn't an easy city, and I think it took probably I'd say like five years to kind of like get your feet on the ground in general. So yeah, it's that's say my only regret is I just wish that I could have had the guts to do it sooner.
I get that. Is there any particular reason why you chose California specifically?
So, California, one, the weather here is just nice all the time. And coming from the East Coast where the wedding industry is seasonal, there's really heavy winters, and there are people that get married in the winter, but it's not it's very seasonal. So, and also I think at one time I did think I wanted to work in the film and in movies and stuff like that. And then I realized that on set is a little not it's a little too much for me. So, but just in California, the possibilities are endless out here, especially in Los Angeles. It's just people get their hair and makeup done to go to themed parties on Tuesdays, you know? So it's like there's something fun and to do always. So it was either that or Miami. And I think Miami was a little too hot for
Yeah.
me, so California is just perfect.
I love it. Yeah. I would also want to be somewhere that's always sunny.
Yeah,
right?
it's
And
just
warm.
honestly, I don't know how I lived 20 something years any other way.
I totally get that. Now,
Mhm.
since we are talking about what it means to be seen, if there is one thing that you wish every couple, queer or not, heard from their wedding artist before their day even begins or during the preparation, what would it be?
Um, I think it would be something sounding like almost like a team pep talk kind of thing, like where we're brainstorming because there is some and when we go through inquiries and some emails, and I ask for inspiration, and when they're shooting out ideas, and we are just like ooh like getting excited and spitting some ideas back and like just sharing the same excitement. I think that like every person deserves that from their artist. Like that is this is fun. This is one of the fun parts. Like I know wedding planning can be really stressful in like so many ways. So I think that that is one thing that like every client deserves is just the enthusiasm and excitement to create art together, really.
Definitely, right? Wedding artists don't stop at the logistics, right? At the services,
Hmm.
but it's a lot of
It is so
emotional,
much.
right, and psychological support as well. The work that you guys do is boundless, I would say. That is
It's a
really
lot. It's a lot.
inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, last one, before
Yeah.
we go to the questions that we have in the chat.
Yeah.
So queer love stories, they come with a history of courage, resilience, and honestly incredible fashion, which I really love about it. What does it
Hmm.
mean to you personally to be the person who gets to be a part of that story on someone's wedding day?
Oh my gosh. It is like to the lack of better words in honor. I just always have found it so moving and liberating to see gay and queer people literally fight with their bare hands just for basic human rights and the resilience that they have. So to be able to be a part of what they fought so long for is just like a beautiful full circle moment that like I hope to be able to be part one day myself and just be able to celebrate the love that so many people were denied like access to, and even like during around the AIDS epidemic where all these partners were dying and then their partners of 20 years weren't even given the right to see their bodies. Like it was their like love was just stripped away, and it's like to be able to just be part of the happiest time of someone's life is just it's I don't know if I could pick a better job, honestly.
Oh, that is a picture. I mean, that's a future that I think we all look forward
Yeah.
to and
Hmm.
hopefully happens, right? Small steps, but I hope we get there
Yeah.
eventually. Thank you so much for answering all those questions, Valerie, but
Of
it
course. Thank
doesn't end
you.
there. Because we have some more questions from the chat. Let me
Yeah.
begin with this one posted by Jing. It's actually a question from the survey that we did
Okay.
before this webinar. It says here, can you share a moment of allyship or acceptance that truly made an impact on your life or career?
Okay. Oh, this is my claim to fame. I love this one. I am one of my regular clients is Bill Nye the Science Guy. I don't know if anyone
Yeah,
is
I
familiar
do
with him,
know.
but he is like a national treasure, I like to say, of just uh like the perfect ally. So he has been my client for a couple of years. I do his and his wife's hair, and when this administration in America had been going on, he was always very kind to me and always asking like how do you plan on getting married? If you do, you should soon because we don't know what's going to happen. And if you are feel I would love to be invited. That would be so great. I would love to come. Like, and there's just like allyship from someone that the world just like
Yeah,
adores, and he's just like such a smart brilliant man, and that just like really made me feel like warm and happy, and that is like my
yeah.
little claim to fame that I love that I got to get from Hollywood.
I love that. One of the best ways to be seen, right?
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
Another question here from the chat, posted by Trisha. Also a question from our survey. How can people respectfully discuss disagreements about LGBTQ plus issues without causing harm or shutting down conversation?
So I think the biggest thing here is to remember that we are when we're talking about LGBTQ, let's say issues per se,
Yeah.
that we are talking about humans, human beings that actually exist, whether you don't believe in it or you don't think it's this or this or that. It's like they actually exist. These are actual humans, and we're talking about um sometimes just basic human rights for them just to exist. So I think that having disagreements and discussions, keeping that at the forefront of those conversations and realize that you're speaking about humans, that is one of the biggest ways I think to just not, like when you just stop and realize that this is a living, breathing, loving someone's son,
Yeah.
daughter, sibling, child, that we're humans, we have empathy naturally. Like we should be able to have these conversations without getting angry or being disrespectful. And I think it all starts right there with coming in it with
I
kindness
love
and
it.
appreciation.
Keeping the conversation going while
Yes.
staying respectful, right? And being
Yeah.
open to each other's opinions and ideas.
Mm-hmm.
There is also another question here, this time from our live webinar audience, from Rowena. Has there been a conversation in a salon chair that changed your perspective on yourself or your life?
Um, I yes, I think some conversations that I also work in a gender neutral barber shop. So we do what we like to call that we specialize in gender affirming haircuts.
Hmm.
So I hear lots of stories from people very early in their transitions, very late in their transitions decades ago, and I've said before that a lot of like loss that queer people experience necessarily of people that are still alive. And
Yeah,
for me, I had a pretty easy transition. I did technically start having boyfriends as a
yeah,
teenager, so I did have to like come out, let's say. And
yeah.
I think that my situation was a piece of cake to some of the things that I've heard from people, and the loss that they've experienced and the rock bottom that they've hit on their own, and the people that have brought them and lifted them up around them, that it really changes perspective of how lucky and privileged that I am. And I just think that I never want to take that for granted, and I always want to be able to stand up for or help or give back in any way, and just simply be kind to to people in my community, and realize that every single person has a different story. And yeah,
Definitely.
it's just there's just compassion here and patience and understanding. I feel like that's hard to come by.
Well, that's really eye-opening that even from within the community, there
Hmm.
would still be very varying experiences, right? And
Crazy to
that's why we
think.
have
Yeah,
to keep an open ear for everyone's stories because you
absolutely.
don't know what the next person or the other person has gone through, and it might not exactly be the same as what we're going through.
100%.
Another question from Rowena. You did give us some interesting stories about some requests from clients, right? In other
Yeah.
some weddings that you uh, coordinated or planned. But here Rowena is asking, Hi Valerie, what are some unique considerations when working with queer couples that traditional wedding services often overlook?
Okay. Well, something that I can kind of relate to with hair and makeup is we have different kits. We have a lot of tools and, brushes, colors, and whatnot. So we do try to like keep things minimal, especially with weddings. So for us, like I know that there will have like kind of like a wedding kit, which will have more like neutral tones, heavier coverages, things that we typically use in weddings. But what I do love about when we're doing a queer wedding, or we know it's going to be someone maybe a little more eclectic, that we bring our kit that has the glitter, the diamonds, the colorful stuff. So like I think that that is often overlooked with like certain wedding artists. Like I know they like I want a green under my eye. Like, oh, well, I don't have green. I brought my wedding bag. Like that's gonna have like basic neutral softer tones. So um we do have like I usually vet out all my people on the phone and I talk to them and I kind of get their vibe. So when I pick my artist, I usually like well specifically pick my artist for different clients. I will tell my artist to pack the good stuff. You know, we're gonna pack the glitter this time because it's a little fancier.
Bring the goods, right?
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
love it. I love how extra that is.
It's so
And
much fun.
I know it really sounds super exciting. There's one more question here in the chat. It's from Joseph. What's the best experience you've had with queer couples that really impacted you to continue further?
Okay, so this just happened, which I love this question. So I just had a queer wedding on our slide. It was they were eating Taco Bell together for their engagement photo. It's two women that found me. Actually, they asked Google for queer women-owned business and we came up first. So that was really exciting to hear. We did their trial and we just like fell in love with each other. They're so great and bubbly and fun, and they did so many things that I did. So fast forward to their wedding day, they have this big, beautiful Victorian house that one of the brides grew up in that she bought from her dad, and they actually are going to move out of it. So it was pretty empty. So what they did was turn their backyard and their living rooms into the wedding venue. Every single thing was DIY'd all the way down to they had a chicken coop in their backyard where they had little chicken treats and a little like you put a quarter in and you spin it and just every sign, every flower, they had their whole living room tinseled out in pink and it was just so curated to their specific like love and desire for each other. It was just like so lovely that I talked about it and cried about it and thought about it for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And I still do their hair. I give them haircuts and do their colors and stuff. So we get to stay in touch. But that wedding right there, like I don't it forever will be the most memorable wedding I've ever done. And I think that alone, I was like, I cannot wait to see what else people come up with. Because that was just always one of my favorite things too, to see what flowers they picked, what the decorations they
Yeah.
picked. But this wedding was, wow, they must have worked on it for every single day for a year because it was amazing.
The level of detail that they put in.
It was so cool. They had this little table, and it was like, "What's your drug of choice?" But it was Coke, Diet Cokes, candy cigarettes, antacid,
I love
some
that.
ibuprofen, because like she's like, we're all over 30, so we all
Yeah.
this is the prescription table. Who has a headache? Who's gonna have indigestion? Like it was just so cute. I loved it so much.
I know. I can just see from your stories how, weddings are really, really personal events. And I
Mhm.
get what you say, where you can't just not stay connected after that, right? And end it as a client relationship because you get so involved in so much personal things that you really
Yep.
see yourself in this idea that the couple built for their wedding. That is so
Hmm.
awesome. Now, Valerie, before we close off this question and answer portion, are there any final words that you'd like to share with the whole iFive community, especially about the things that we can do as a community to help people be seen?
Yes. Okay. So one advice I would always give is like to if you hear a term or see something that you are unaware of or don't know, feel free to ask. I feel like a lot of queer people are always very interested in explaining or telling people why when people are coming with an open curious mind and are actually interested in learning. So I always say like constantly we have our little Google in our pocket, like constantly look up and stay current with things in the not even just queer culture, just in general, always stay curious. And if you're interested in trying something and you might be nervous to do it, my gut is telling me to tell you to just to do it because it could be one of the most freeing experiences that you've had, and maybe even just a compliment from somebody saying that they like it that day could really change your perspective on something. So I always like encourage people to try the thing that you're thinking you're doing. Look up, ask questions. If you make a mistake with a pronoun or something, apologize, correct yourself, move on. Don't ever feel like um, you owe anyone this over apology for making a mistake. Like queer people and gender nonconforming people are just some of the most understanding people I've ever met in my life, and they're just always looking to bring community, make community, and just kind people. So
Thank you so much,
you're welcome.
Valerie. Those were really inspiring words. And thank you to
You're welcome.
everyone who participated in today's discussion. Before we wrap up, our employee engagement team will be posting a survey link in the chat. So we would love to hear your feedback about today's session in the Pride Speaker Series overall. And you know what, Valerie, actually, this is really fun because after they complete the survey, they'll be given a chance to win some raffle prizes
Oh, fun.
that we
Yes.
have prepared for them. So we're really looking forward to everyone responding to the link that was just posted in the chat right now. So don't miss out on that opportunity. So as we close today's session, we want to thank you all for joining us and for being a part of this conversation. And I want to give a very special thank you to Valerie for sharing your story, your experiences, and your perspective to everyone here at iFive today. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Valerie.
so much for having me. This was such a pleasure. I really love to educate. So this is thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We are so honored to hear about your experiences and your journey. And you guys will also be sharing her contacts if you want to follow her business and what she's up to. If you got interested in her story, it'll be here in a few in the chat. Now, throughout this series, we have explored a lot of things. We've explored understanding, belonging, and now being seen. Now, while each conversation has been unique, right, from the first one to this third webinar that we are having right now, they all remind us of the importance of creating space where people feel respected, valued, and able to be themselves. So, thank you everyone who made or helped make today's session possible and for participating in this initiative and having this conversation with us today. We appreciate your time and your openness to learning. Happy Pride and have a wonderful day, everyone.